On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to fill out your character sheet.
We're going to start with the first step, which is generating and assigning your ability scores. Hi there, I'm Monty Martin.
And I'm McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes.
On today's episode, we're going to be looking at the first steps for filling out your character sheet, mainly generating ability scores.
This is the first step in the character creation process, and it's an essential step because it's going to help you figure out a little bit about who your character is, what they're good at, what their personality is like, what they even look like physically. These are all ideas that you can get from your character's ability scores.
This is also going to be the first video in a series of videos about filling out the entire sheet. We do have an overview video as well, and at the end of this episode we will be linking you to the next step in filling out the sheet.
We're starting with generating the ability scores because everything else on your character sheet really requires this information to be decided. It even informs your choice of race and class. So with that, let's get rolling. The ability scores are the core attributes of every Dungeons & Dragons character, and they're the building blocks which inform all of your character's statistics for making attacks, using skills, casting spells, and even surviving.
You have 6 of them that you have to generate. There's strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma.
Wow, you got those all in order right off.
There's a book in front of me that helps me out. So let's go through them. Strength.
So strength is a measure of your character's physical power and natural athleticism. It's used for making melee attacks, but also lifting heavy objects and carrying out feats of raw athletic strength.
Dexterity.
Dexterity is used for ranged attacks as well as your character's initiative, and it defines how hard your character is to hit in combat.
Constitution.
This is just how tough your character is. It's used to withstand things like poisons and death magic, but also determines how many hit points your character has.
How about intelligence?
Intelligence is most important if you're going to be a wizard, but it's also your character's logic and your character's book smarts, what they know and how good their memory recall and logic is.
Wisdom?
Wisdom, on the other hand, is your character's natural perceptions linked to their 5 senses. It's also their natural intuition, and they're kind of what they know just by feeling it.
And how about charisma?
Charisma is your character's personality, likability, and ability to persuade and influence other people.
So, there are 3 main ways to generate these ability scores. The first one is one of the most fun ways, and that is rolling for them.
We can also use a standard array to generate the ability scores, or a point-by method. What's important with all 3 of these methods is that they're all going to give us ability scores that range on a scale from 1 to 20. 20 is the highest ability score a mortal character can achieve, although monsters do get higher ability scores. And 1 is the lowest a creature can have in Dungeons & Dragons, although player characters can't really have an ability score lower than 3, unless it's been reduced by magic.
An important thing to discuss, I think, is the difference between the ability scores that you generate and what the modifiers look like that come from that.
Yes, because the raw ability score modifier is actually not used that much in your character sheet. The modifier, instead, is more important. If your character has an ability score of 10 or 11, they don't add anything to any die rolls pertaining to that ability. But the higher it is, the more you get to add to your die rolls, and the lower it is, you'll actually have a penalty on any die roll influenced by that ability score.
And you can actually find the rules for most of the stuff we're talking about on page 13 of the player's handbook, including the modifiers that you'll gain by getting your different ability scores.
Yeah. So when we actually go to generate the ability scores, the classic way is to roll the dice. And this is what we call the 46 in drop lowest method, where we roll 4 6-sided die, discard the lowest number amongst those dice, and record that result. We do this 6 times, write down the numbers, and then assign them however you see fit.
What about the point-by system?
In point-by, you have a pool of points that you assign them on a not quite one-to-one basis to each score. So your Dungeon Master might say you have 27 points to assign to your ability scores. Generally in this method, the minimum ability score you can have is 8.
And then we have the standard array, which is simply choosing the numbers 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. And you can assign those to any ability score that you see fit based on the character that you want to play.
When you're rolling ability scores, you get very natural and organic characters, but there's the possibility that someone at the table can roll really, really well, and someone can roll really, really poorly. It also means that it's possible for someone to get into a character that has way too high ability scores, which actually will let them steamroll a couple encounters. So when rolling characters, you may not want to permit characters that have truly exceptional ability scores in the same party as players with very, very low ones.
So now we've looked at the ability scores, which are the core of your D&D character. We looked at the 3 options for how to generate the scores, the 6 different ability scores that you need to generate, and also the modifiers associated with those.
With all those in hand, you have everything that you need to generate the ability scores and assign them and write them in on your character sheet. You're going to want to write down both the score and the modifier because you'll be referring to those later on in the future steps for character creation. So now that you've generated your character's ability scores and understand how they work, you're probably ready to move on to the next step where you're actually going to choose a race and a class for your character, along with assigning your ability scores themselves. You can find out how to do that in our next video right over here.
And if you already have an idea on the personality of your character, but you want some tips on how to make them truly awesome, we have a video for that over here.
If you like what we're doing, you can support our show as a patron by following the links down below.
Please subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time
in the dungeon.